You know what you were saying? I was thinking about that, where you said you talk about a lot of really heavy subjects in your podcast, in some of the episodes with people who've been working in those spaces. Does it make you existential sometimes, or sad? Because like, how do you maintain the balance between realism and hopefulness when it comes to ecological preservation?
Wow, that's a great question. So, for me, hope is sort of a byproduct of my interactions with people and the work that I do. I'm constantly reminded, and my faith in humankind is constantly reaffirmed the more I do what I do. I don't feel increasingly disillusioned because I've spent time in this field. In fact, the more time I spend, the more I'm like, yes, we do have hope. There is a silver lining because I see uh, people doing good work, and I see increasingly more people wanting to do good work. And I talk to people and they tell me that the youth is really changing the way things are going. So to me it's almost like an incentive to keep doing what I'm doing because I keep getting hope. I think if I start working in like an office or in like a bank or something, then I'm going to run out of hope because then I'm going to be surrounded by people who just hate their lives and who only see the dreary and who only see the sad. I'm sorry if anyone listening works in a bank.
Guys, don't
I'm sorry for
unsubscribe.
you as well. But yeah, so for me hope is like I said, it's a byproduct. It's something I keep getting in terms of it's like a salary for me. I don't get paid very much to do my job as an environmental lawyer, and that's not at all a problem. I'm not asking for a pay raise in case my boss watches this. I'm happy with boss.
But
Give
it
me lots of
wouldn't
money.
hurt. I mean,
uh I guess not, but it's not something I aspire to. Also, I'm okay. I think like if you keep aspiring for more money, then you're always going to be dissatisfied. But at the same time, like money is also not. It's something I'm telling, like I'm saying this in a public forum for the first time, but I'm going to make sure What on Earth is always 100% free. And I'm not even going to like start a Patreon. I don't want you guys to pay me any money. I don't want, I'll bear all the costs of production and all that jazz. I want it to be completely like I think like these days anyone who even does good job will be like, hey, I'm doing a good job, pay me for it. And I don't want it to be, I don't want that relationship of money to be there with something I love, which is making the podcast. So to me, the paycheck, the salary that I get for doing the podcast is knowledge, is hope, and is a spirit that yes, good can happen and good is happening. And there are so many people, and the only thing you have to do is just start, and people find you, and you find people, and you're filled with hope, you're filled with positivism, you're filled with opportunities, which is so rare that there are so many opportunities these days that maybe didn't exist before. This networking is possible to such a great extent now, and I think that gives me hope. And I think the way the youth, our generation and kids younger than us, are really taking matters into their own hand. Everyone has their own institution or organization or page, or someone or the other is constantly doing something, and this for me is like wow. It's so beautiful because I mean, like 30 years ago, 40 years ago, everyone like that they aspired to have a government job, to have a big bungalow, to have a steady income. These were the markers of progress. Now that's changing. Now it's becoming it. We are redefining success in many ways, and that gives me tremendous hope. So although I talk about really, like you said, heavy stuff, in some ways the message that I'm trying to put across is that it's not all bad news. It's in fact great news, and this is what the great news is.
that's so beautiful. I love that you said that what you gain from it is hope. And I think often what we define as gain is just always put into this box of where you must earn money. But your gain can be
Absolutely.
in so many different ways. And when you start realizing that is when you start living more mindfully or more open to experiences and people. And just in general, it makes you a calmer person, I think, when you start looking at it that way.
Absolutely.
Do you think you've
Absolutely.
become a more calmer
Because
person?
Yes, yes, most definitely. So, one thing I've realized is this inherent pursuit for money is premised on a very deep philosophical idea of domination. You want to be number one. You want to win. You want to win at somebody else's expense. Any transaction that you're doing, also, you want to be the party that's making more money than the other guy. That's when you're a successful businessman. When you pull this deal out and the other guy didn't get nothing, but you won. Yeah. And this is like, these are rewarded in the business sphere. These ideas of domination, of control, of winning, these are like predominant, and to me they're just inherently very depressing and like saddening emotions to have constantly, because to always be at war with the world is like, it's so exhausting, you know and to always be like, oh, how do I scam this guy, and how do I get money here, and it's so taxing. Like, it's so much easy to just relax and be like, yeah, I love you world, I love you. I don't have any beef to pick with you, I don't have any war to fight with you. Just let me love you and you love me back. I think saying that makes life just so easy. And I think we have sort of fetishized life being tough, and we fetishize life being a game, or a
or a
contest
contest
between
between
us and the
us and the
Struggle
world.
world.
constantly.
Yeah, struggle and rat race. It's so ridiculous, man. Like, what are you even racing for? Like, have you even stopped to think about it?
But like it's
No,
almost as
but
if we've picked up these notions from our like the corporate space and applied them everywhere, where you want
yeah,
control over the environment, you want control over your surroundings, over
yeah. Over
natural
people.
elements, over people. And
Yeah,
people are natural elements. We forget that
yeah,
sometimes, that we're a part of this,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And we're not that different from like if you look on a DNA scale, we're like, what, over 96% similar to chimpanzees, and like over 60% similar to bananas or something like that. So in many ways, that's an actual fact. So in many ways, we are so much uh, like, we are the planet, we are ecology, but we have just taken ourselves out of it, and we view ourselves as these individual beings. So actually, it's very interesting. I was reading this one thing which said that human babies and pig babies, baby piglets, and baby monkeys, on a intellectual level, if you look at it from our abilities of cognition, our abilities of like problem solving, we are pretty much the same. Human babies and pig babies and monkey babies, we're pretty much on the same, we can solve the same problems. So why do like 20-year-old humans look so different from 20-year-old pigs, or why does human society look so different from pig society? It's because we can communicate with each other. It's because there is a long, unending line of knowledge that's being passed down from thousands and thousands of generations ago to now. That endless stream of knowledge what it basically tells me is that human society can only exist with each other. You know, I would never be able to make this computer by myself, or this internet connection, or these books, or this shirt, or cut my. I would never be able to be myself without other people. But we often forget that. I mean, I would never be able to even count to 10 or say the words that I'm saying right now, because no one would have taught me those. someone taught me that. So someone taught me how to count to 100. Someone taught me how to use my phone. Someone taught me all of these things. And they were taught by somebody, and they were taught by somebody, and they were taught by somebody. It's an endless chain of knowledge being passed. And I, yeah, and I can only continue that. I can only continue being if I interact with people. I need others' lives for my sustenance, and others need me for theirs. So, what I think is really messed up, what we're doing right now is we're leading increasingly more individualistic lives, where it's all about me, myself, and I. It's all about who is number one. And to me, that's always going to be something that's going to make people sad, because one is a very lonely number. Like, why do you want to be number one? It's so much better to be with everyone. Human beings are so fascinating and so beautiful, but we are just increasingly getting hateful, I feel. Some parts of us are, some parts are getting better, but I think like we're radicalizing more, like because of many reasons. But this idea that you have to be number one, you have to win, you have to earn money, you have to dominate people, you have to dominate minds, you have to dominate the market. All of these things, they need to stop. And until they don't stop, we're just going to feel worse. That's all. And I mean, just look at it. Like, so many of my friends are on antidepressants, and I feel so bad, because I mean, they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be. Not that mental health is like it's their fault at all. It's not at all their fault that they're forced to take medication for that. I mean, they have no other alternative, and I feel so bad for them. But the fact that so many more people are on antidepressants now, I mean, it should tell us something about the way we design society, and about how we look at mental health as well. We're so just archaic when it comes to our mental health situation. I mean, how we look at it. To me, like a functioning, like a person who has diabetes is not like, we don't tell them that, array, just talk about it and fix your diabetes.
Why don't
You
you
know?
go for a walk? You'll be fine.
Yeah. Just take a walk. I'm sure cancer will like sort itself out. So there are like deeper reasons for why mental illness exists, and we don't talk about them. And I think the reason more mental illness is increasing is because of this, philosophy of capitalism, of domination, of patriarchy. It's all the same. They're just different forms of the same evil, which is control. Yeah, controlling who you think is junior to you, or who you think is lesser than you. Casteism, racism, patriarchy, capitalism, they're all just different faces of the same evil, which is control.
That is so true. I was having this conversation yesterday with my mum, and we were talking about some of the cases that have come up and they're being talked about right now in the media with rape victims and victims who've been molested. And that's actually exactly what it's all about. It's just about a bunch of people who want to assume control over some other people,
Absolutely.
and the only reason
Absolutely.
they succeed is because they maybe have some extra physical strength. That's literally why they
Yeah.
succeed doing it. Why they get away with it is because of uneven and unfair structures which are in place right now, where we enable these things to happen and keep happening, and we don't
Yeah.
put the pressure or the onus of doing something like that on those people. I think the
Yeah.
way that we look at society and people needs to change. I feel like when we live in isolation, like what you're saying, we are becoming increasingly more selfish and isolated. We lose empathy, and we start to dehumanize, and that's a big problem. Not just within the human species, but also
Absolutely.
we lose empathy for anything outside of our species.
So even when we look at like criminals, and I think, and this is a very unpopular opinion. This is something I've got into numerous fights with and arguments with people over. But I feel like being harsh on criminals, or saying that every murderer, every rapist should be hanged, uh, that's the same thing, right? You're trying to control something from a top down approach, instead of actually seeing why, like, a person who is mentally depraved enough to commit a rape, I mean, you have to be really just messed up in the head. You have to have lived and experience some really traumatic incidents for you to think that that's an okay thing to do. I don't think anyone who's mentally sane, or rather, more sane than insane, would ever commit a gruesome act of violence. I can't think like a Buddhist monk, would ever commit any of something like that, because they are in many ways at peace with themselves. And so for me, that doesn't mean you say you forgive criminals of all their crimes. It's not all justified. But at the same time, let's ask ourselves, how do we like, what is the problem here? Because we can keep hanging people, and we have been hanging people. We hung people when Nirbhaya happened. We've hung people after that, but I mean, it's not like rapes have gone down. It's not that the gruesomeness of rapes has been, like we just saw with Hathras, and literally Hathras is one incident of tens that happened in Uttar Pradesh in a short span of 3 days. And these are things that are reported. Who knows what else has happened? Who knows what else has gone unseen? So for me, if we really want to solve this problem, and I really hope we want to solve this problem, of rape, of crime, of all things, I think we have to ask ourselves that what is wrong with these criminals? Why do they feel the need to do that act? Why do they feel that this is something that's okay to do? And I think those are the questions we should ask, instead of, okay, how do we kill them next, or how do we make their punishment harsher? Because all that's going to do, nobody commits a crime thinking that, weighing how harsh the punishment is. They do a crime because they think they're going to get away with it. Nobody's like, oh, the jail sentence has been increased from 10 years to 15 years, let me not do it. Nobody does a crime assuming they're going to get caught. Everyone, and most people do get away as well, as so I think we need to like relook at some very basic fundamental questions: how we treat mental illness, how we treat criminals, how we treat all these things that we think is deviant behavior. Homosexuality, until like not so long ago, was thought of as deviant behavior. What is this? I mean, yeah, that's so ridiculous. We're all, I don't think there's anyone who's like 100% heterosexual. I think that's ridiculous. It's a spectrum, it's a spectrum, and we create these binaries to make life easier for us, but it does more harm than good, I feel.
We create them to make sense of things, but sometimes
Yeah.
you can't bring that sort of order into something which is so fluid.
Yeah.
It's healthier to keep it that way, and to accept it as well.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
I think that's, yeah, so many larger things at play, and these are big concepts, and big, I think, systems that need to be changed, which all of us can, if we just adopt more mindful practices of living and working and kind of surviving. I remember from this what you said in one of your episodes. You compared the climate crisis to the COVID crisis. And in the end, you said you actually asked your listeners to treat the climate crisis just as we are the COVID crisis, as if our lives kind of depended on it, because they do. So,
Because they do.
exactly. And like you said, we are so blessed as a species. We are capable of planning ahead, and we're capable of, we have foresight and things like that. But often, what I find when I talk to people is that they don't know where to start in their everyday lives. They don't know what to start with. So, could you tell me maybe some ways in which you have changed your lifestyle, you've adopted certain changes which are more in tune with sustainable living and mindful living?
That's a great question. So the change really occurred in me when I realized one really simple but profound thing, which is that every act is an ecological act. Anything you do is has an ecological imprint. Us right now, we're chatting. It's running on electricity, which is being powered in a thermal power plant from somewhere, and that requires its infrastructure. The transport of electricity requires its infrastructure to come to me. There had to be lines planted across, like transmission lines. Had to be planted. Someone had to be employed to do all that. They had to have paperwork. All of this just so that we can communicate. And this is just one thing. You go to the store, you buy something. That's an ecological act. You wake up, you flush. You brush your teeth. Ecological act. Everything is an ecological act because everything is part of the large ecology and everything has a footprint. So for me, I realized that it was once I realized that everything I do has an ecological imprint, then you start viewing things much differently. Then a t-shirt is not just a t-shirt for you, it's 5,000 liters of water. And you're like, should do I really want to, spend money on 5,000 liters of water? Not because spending money is bad, but because do I really want that 5,000 liters of water do I want to walk around wearing 5,000 liters of water? Everything you do, you buy a toothbrush. You're like, okay, this is made of plastic, which comes from petroleum, which is extracted from oil from deep beneath the earth. Do I really need to buy this? So once you realize that every single thing you do, everything, the clothes you wear, the food you eat, the people you meet, everything in some way, the cars you drive, everything is an ecological act. So once you realize that we are constantly imprinting ourselves on the planet, I think people themselves become more cautious and more conscious about what they are doing and how they are making purchases. I think I'm no one to tell anyone to buy something or not to buy something. I think it's ultimately everyone's personal decision. Like some people, in the environmental movement will go crazy if you eat meat or if you're not vegan. But I mean, ठीक है यार, even if you're not vegan, I mean, you can't be like, oh, everyone has to be vegan and then you drive like a BMW car, because I mean, it's not about virtue signaling. It's not about like seeming to do the right thing and to be woke. It's about really realizing that our space in the ecology is a very direct, and often we externalize the impacts, like our sewage. You don't see your sewage, so it becomes like out of sight, out of mind, but it's still there. Yeah, somebody else's problem. I flushed, now it's gone. Ab tum log dekho. But that's really not how it works, and that sewage will come back to me only in some way or the other. That plastic that I throw, it's going to come back to me only. So I think once we realize how deeply enmeshed and embedded we are in the planet, that's when we ourselves change our decisions completely. That's when we ourselves start viewing things in terms of what can I do to make the most change, or what can I do that will have the least polluting impact, So I think this central idea needs to be realized by everyone, that you are an ecological being. You're not a machine. Even a machine is an ecological being in some way because it's made, because that's also made from natural resources. So realizing that we're all natural, even man-made things are very much natural. So that is something that I have been trying to realize, and I think if your listeners would just see as a thought experiment, just see that every step you take, right, like your shoes, ecological act. So and an ecological act is not just an ecological act by itself. It becomes a social act, right? Me buying shoes, which are made from like cheap labor because some kid in Bangladesh is sewing them in a sweatshop, or me flushing and not giving a shit because that is going to be cleared by a manual scavenger who's undoubtedly going to belong to a lower caste. I think not lower caste, I beg your pardon, like an oppressed caste. Yeah. There's no lower higher, obviously. So it's usually a Dalit. It's not that all Dalits are manual scavengers, but all manual scavengers will be Dalits. You can bet your bottom dollar. So it's often an intersectional problem, and you have to, I think, your listeners should try this as a thought experiment. Each act of yours is a political, social, environmental, ecological act, and it's up to each individual to see what they think is a right thing to do. Some people might say that me doing a podcast on electricity, talking about how much pollution I'm creating is also really stupid because I should just go and live in a forest if I really care about it. But I'm not doing that. I'm living in the city. I'm flushing every day. So, I guess like we have to constantly re-examine our priorities and what we want to do.
Just make mindful choices.
Mindful choices.
Is a good
Absolutely.
plan, because like even in one of your episodes, I remember I really enjoyed that one in which you spoke to, correct me if I'm wrong, Aishwarya Phadke.
Yes.
Okay. And you spoke about traveling and sustainable travel and things like that. And she said at one point, saying, she was like, but then like when can you have fun? Like you travel so you have fun, and then when you're constantly worrying about how your carbon footprint is just growing, when do you have fun? But I think the idea is to maybe strike a good balance between being mindful of what you're doing, and trying to ensure that you're not harming the space that
Yeah.
you live in, and that
And
that
you're
includes,
having fun.
yeah, and you're
At
having
the
fun.
same time.
How do you have
Yeah.
fun, Maitreya, when you're plagued with these thoughts? Please tell me.
So for me, like what would be, since I have started viewing all acts as like ecological acts. Now for me to do something that is considered like traditionally polluting and fun, I would feel so bad doing it. Like going on a long drive. It's just what love. To me, that the idea of going on a long drive itself doesn't seem appealing anymore, because I'm just wasting fuel for what? It's so stupid. So I think like when you start changing your perception of what is a good thing to do, your idea of what is a fun thing also automatically changes. You know, like living in a luxurious five-star is really fun for a lot of people. Flying first class would be like, wow, this is the dream. But to me, it's just not fun. Like I see celebrities posting videos of their mansions and shit, and I'm like, God, so excessive, such a waste of. I mean, there are people living like in 8x8 rooms, sleeping on top of each other, and this guy is so like. I think when you have a philosophical change in your priorities and in your values, what is fun to you also automatically changes. So so like even for Aishwarya, I mean, she's become a friend after that interview, and we've also collaborated now on a different project that I'm working with her on. She's a great human being, and so for her also, I'm guessing like her ideas of fun are completely different from a businessman's idea of fun, which would probably involve like throwing money at something and like expecting great amounts of like just dopamine hits, but so I think like everyone's idea of fun is also different, and I think your idea of what is fun is based on your values, and once your values change, your ideas of fun change, and now I'm just using my values to drive me to have fun. I think doing this, like talking to friends, is such a almost like maligned thing. Like, oh, what do you do all day? You just talk to friends. I mean, so what? It's great. It's great to communicate and connect with someone else, man. It's so profound and beautiful. That's fun for me. But for some people, it would not be fun.
Your values, I wouldn't say they don't change, but I think they evolve, and your perceptions evolve, and those kind of direct you to what fun is for you, and that's beautiful. And I can think of a parallel where take working out, until you start doing it, you don't realize just how phenomenal you feel after, and the tiny changes that happen. And then for me, like ever since I started working out regularly, and whenever I have even before, I don't feel like cheating on it. I don't feel like eating that extra dessert when I know it's
Yes.
gluttony. I don't want it just because it's
Yes.
available. I feel like that's a very that totally makes sense. You know, when you start changing your the way you think, it's automatically your lifestyle gets affected, and then the stuff that you earlier would find attractive sometimes isn't that attractive anymore.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
You know what really interested me in also approaching you as a guest was because of this, the work that you're doing, and now it's led us to talk about so many different things. Like, I just find it
Yeah.
so fascinating that all of us are just made up of our stories. Like, that's what we are just walking, talking stories. And
Yeah.
unless you communicate, you're never going to
Yeah.
get those stories and those experiences from each other. And something you said is going to stay with me, I'm going to take it ahead to someone else, and vice
Yeah.
versa, you know.
Yeah.
And that's so beautiful, and that's what art does. You know what? In some way, what we're doing is like creating art. You know, creation itself, and you know, you maybe like some listener will listen to one line and that'll stay with them and that'll influence them in some way. Whatever it is, or you know, just for each other as well. But that's how these things work. They're so beautiful and they're so indefinable, and you know, you can't like attribute a direct cause effect relationship, but it all adds up. You know, it all adds up.
I think the underlying thing of everything we've spoken about today is that sometimes you can't establish a direct cause and effect relationship, but you must know that everything adds up everywhere in everything that you do.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. There is no inconsequentialness.
Coming back to one structural aspect of this video, it's not at all structural. It's just a fun segment which I like to call 3, 2, 1. So I'm going to
Okay.
ask you questions and you have to respond in either one word or one phrase. Okay, 3, 2, 1, here we go. 3 realizations that have been unearthed for you as a creator.
There is no perfect. You will uh, you will always make an impact with your work, and the best show is the one that you're going to make next.
Oh, I love that. I love it. Okay, awesome. 3 lifestyle changes everybody can make today towards mindful living. Tangible lifestyle changes.
Put your money in the right places. That is, put your money into places that further love and not hate. Put your love into places that further love, and put greater thought into everything you do. Be mindful of your actions.
Lovely. I love that. Okay. 3 creators or change makers that everybody should follow or know about through social media or anywhere else.
Podcasters, I'll tell you because I'm doing podcasts. So one podcaster I really appreciate is a man called Stephen West. He does a show called Philosophize This, which is just breaks down philosophy in such a beautiful way. If anyone's interested in really learning more about philosophy, do check it out. Another podcast that is along the lines of what I do is called Green Dreamer. It's by this wonderful lady called Kamina Shane, who gets these fascinating, just like brilliant guests on. So do check that out. It's deeply, deeply insightful. And thirdly, it would be an Indian podcaster called Amit Verma. So he talks about a lot of Indian problems on his show called The Seen and the Unseen. Uh, there's a couple of them. There's maybe like him. There's Milan Vaishnav for the Grand Tamasha, and there is Shruti Rajgopalan for Ideas of India. So if you want to get a better idea of India, which I am very curious about, do check out these podcasts. I know it's more than 3, but yeah.
Oh no, that's great. I mean, it's a wonderful bank of creators. Okay, 2
Yeah.
things your guests said on What on Earth that struck a chord and that have stayed with you. Any 2 things from any 2 guests.
Any two? Well, so the first episode that I did struck like many chords because I did it with my father. And one thing that he said that has just stuck with me a lot is that nature is a technology that is far superior to any that human have created so far. And the ability to understand and be respectful of nature and its mind bending technology, which is so advanced and we treat it as nothing, that is something that has really struck with me. Secondly, with I mean, I did one podcast with Gurdas Nulkar, Dr. Gurdas Nulkar, which is my best selling, so to speak, episode. And he talked about how we need to redefine how we look at success or how we look at progress, you know. So for someone sitting in South Bombay, the idea of development is completely different from the ideas of development that you would have if you were in a small village. I mean, there's a couple of villages we mention as well that he mentions in the interview. But basically, the idea of development, we need to relook at it because it's something that requires some serious reconsideration. So these two things I think have really stayed with me.
Wow, lovely. Okay, two skills or habits that you want to work on as a creator or as this brand maker.
Okay, that's very easy. Time management and marketing. I think I suck at both of those. I'm really bad at marketing. I'm not so great at time management either.
It's not easy, so it's okay. You're trying.
It's really not. But that doesn't mean I shouldn't work on it.
Those are good skills to keep working on. Okay, one thing you would want everybody in this world to learn, and one thing that you want them to unlearn.
Oh my God. Okay. So I guess, one thing that I would really like everyone to unlearn is this spirit of competition and domination that you want to control. I think you should unlearn the idea that control is possible. Control is an illusion. We exercise control only inside of us, not outside. So external control is something we have to unlearn. Something that I would like everyone to learn is that each human being is beautiful. Each human being is precious and each human being deserves love. And there is something to love in every human being and there is love to give to every human being. So if you can learn love, I think. It's great, yeah. Love is so awesome.
It is. It's just the best. Okay. Okay.
Nice.
Sweet. Okay. One piece of advice you'd like to give someone who's thinking of starting their own podcast or venture or just creating in this space that you're in.
One piece of advice I would give is that keep at it. Whatever happens, if you're not making progress, if you're not able to put out anything, if you are put out something and you get trolled for it, just keep at it. The only important thing is persistence, is dedication. Your past doesn't matter. You might have been trolled, you might have been hated on, you might have felt like yourself, like, what is this nonsense that I'm doing? But if you have a dream, keep at it because the path itself is what brings you happiness. Not the destination. Is the journey that's important.
That's true.
As cliche as that
it's
bloody
cliche.
sounds.
It's cliche for a reason. It
It's
works.
true.
It's true.
Yeah, absolutely. It's cliche
For a reason.
Okay, and my last question to you, which I've decided to ask all my guests, is that what has making made you?
Wow, wonderful question. What has making made me? Making has made me firstly and foremostly deeply respectful of creators because it seems easy, and I think that's a testament to how good these creators are that they make it seem effortless. So a deep respect for anyone who creates anything at all. It could be quality is not a consideration as long as you create. I respect you. Secondly, it's made me realize things about my own thought process. It's made me realize how I respond to problems is also in some ways constructed, and that is also subject to its own prejudices and biases. the more I talk to people and they respond in ways that I didn't completely think about it in that way at all. And when they respond, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Why didn't I think of that? And when I ask myself, why didn't I think of that? I realize that, hey, my mind is also structured and socially constructed in many ways. So realizing that I am not like some enlightened being, I am just as flawed a human being is something that I have, that is that. So in some ways, making has made me more self-aware. I think that's something I'd say.
That's it.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
I cannot express how happy I feel, and there's so much for me to think about, and I'm sure the listeners have lots to think and ponder over. Everyone, please do not forget to check out Maitreya's podcast, What on Earth. It's available on all streams.
All the major
Yeah,
podcast
all the
apps.
major
Yes,
podcast.
anyone that you can think of, it's probably there.
It's probably there. Go check it out.
Yeah.
He has some wonderful.
If it's not, then just look on a different one. I mean, you'll find it on some. It's there on many.
You'll find it
So-
in the description box below. So don't worry about it. And I'm so excited to see everything that you are going to do. What's next for What on Earth? What are you planning?
Wow. Okay. That's so. Like I told you already, I was going to make this announcement, but I'm going to keep What on Earth completely free. At the same time, however, I do realize the power that money has, and money in good hands can make a huge difference. So, what I'm going to start doing from next time, from episode 11, is that I am going to start asking people to donate money to organizations that my guests themselves want me to. So, in some ways, you listen to the episode, you listen to the guest talk, and if you feel that this is someone whose work I want to support, then you can go ahead and donate to them directly. I don't want to get any money or give it anywhere. So I want to raise money for good people. Basically, I want the podcast to be a way that I support in some small way these great people as well. So that's one thing that I've planned next. And I'm also working on a couple of other segments. So it's not just going to be interviews. I'm going to also try to break down certain concepts, because I've realized that once you're in a particular field, you think that what you know is common knowledge. Everyone knows this. But then you start realizing that some people don't know because they haven't been exposed to it. They don't know even some things that you consider basic knowledge. So because a lot of people have been telling me that, wow, this completely opened my eyes and I've completely learned something totally new. I have realized that maybe there's a market for me to explain them certain concepts as well. So it's going to be a much shorter, maybe 5 to 10 minute podcast, but it's going to be on the lines of me deconstructing or explaining a particular concept. It could be, a concept. It could be a movement. It could be a person's work. It could be anything, but just explaining things so that we have a better idea of ground realities. That's something that's planned for the future.
There's lots of exciting things are gonna happen, and I'm here for it. I'm so excited to see, and oh my god, this has been just the most lovely conversation. I'm so happy we got to sit down and do this, and it's gonna stay with me for a long time.
That's amazing, Anushka. That's so sweet of you to say, and thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for doing everything you do. I've been a vocal fan, and I'm going to continue doing that, because there are many artists out there, and I'm not denigrating their work or putting them down, but you will always have a special place in my heart, because we've been friends for so long, as well as because of just the quality of the work and the message that you put out. It's so loving. It's so full of just joy and happiness, and to me, on a bad day, I just have to look up Anushka Hardikar's Instagram
Stop.
to feel better.
I'm
It's
stopping
true.
now. We
It's
are
true.
not. I'm not creating
You and
anything else.
Anusha
I'm happy.
are like such good friends of mine, and such talented artists, and I'm always in awe of the work you do and the videos you put out. And just keep doing what you're doing, because the world definitely needs it.
That is so sweet, and it's so encouraging, and you know how it feels when someone says something like that. So thank you,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
I will see you
Thank you.
soon.
Yes.
Thank you guys for listening. Lots of love to you
Alright.
all.
See you guys.
If you liked that episode, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. Comment below what you liked about it and who you'd like to see next on Here and How. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Take care. Love you all. See you soon. Bye.